Good morning, lovely people. Thank you very much for joining me on this wonderful spring morning. It's glorious weather yet again. Lovely. Now today I've got a few updates for you. It's not just about a tour around my plots. That's other people can do that, and they're much more entertaining doing so. But I'd like to show you a few things that have worked that you might be able to copy, and a few things that haven't worked, to try and pass on knowledge as much as I can. That's what this channel is all about, is trying to pass on what has worked, what hasn't worked, and give you an opportunity to copy the various little bits, modify them, improve them. That'd be wonderful. First of all, we're going to start with a failure with the sweetcorn sowing, but then we're going to move on to celery, spinach, and an update on the field bean smothering. See how that's worked, because it's important to see the boring bits, which is a piece of background being revealed, but whether or not it's worked or not. And I can prove that to you today. That's really good. To finish the video, I want to dwell on garlic rust. We've been hit hard by garlic rust, and I'll show you something that has worked, something that isn't working quite as well as I hoped, and compare it against the other crops up the allotment on other people's plots that is really been hit hard. The rust seems abnormally early this year. I'll probably say that every year. But anyway, let's get to the video and get on with it. And this is the failure. 3 sweet corn out of all this tray. It's an F1 variety, planted fairly recently. But the alarming thing is, if I dig up these cells and look through, had to pick one, didn't I? Let's try another one. There's the seed. It's all soggy and mushy. And no matter which one I try, they basically rotted off in the compost. I talked to a couple of other chaps out up at allotments, and they seem to think that it's this peat-free, no matter what brand, just holding on to the moisture too much, and it just sitting there. As you see, the tops are fairly dry, so it tends to lead you to water them. So perhaps overwatering, I don't know. Once the plants start going, this peat-free does reasonably well. And you could say to me, well, Mike, it's not a seed sowing compost, but I've never had this problem with peat compost in the past. So yeah, let's just right. So let's offset this with a success. Remember, I planted the root cutting of the comfrey, 2 pieces of comfrey. Both have taken magnificently. That one there is looking astounding. So I can be a bit of a doubting Thomas, thinking, well, is this going to work? Well, yeah, there it is. Root cuttings of comfrey actually work. Stop being a doubting Thomas, Mike. Now this has worked magnificently. You'll see on the plot a little bit later on, I talk about celery, and these are exactly the same plants as what you'll see later on, and you can see they're almost ready. I've taken the crops of the other ones outside, not much so far, just a few of the other stems, like that one there for instance, and it tastes lovely. A little bit stringy. I was a bit surprised by that. Wasn't quite prepared for that. I was expecting it to be more tender. Perhaps that's my optimistic nature. But yeah, put them in some pots, keeping them well watered despite how they look at this moment. It's been warm today, and it's going to give a great crop. So that's a success. Right, so on the plot now, my second plot. Now the celery on the left of the screen, outside of the glass, are the same as the celery inside the glass, which is the same as the celery at home. This is just, we're looking at now, is just an old shower cubicle and it's just kept the cold wind off the celery, so that has done well. Now then, this is now my bed with field beans on it that I 4 weeks ago I had chopped and dropped, and all that remains are these few stalks. So that's gone very well. Just as a little flashback, this is what I was doing. Yeah, I think it graphically demonstrates how much of that green material has gone in that short space of time, and the only thing done is left it on top of the soil. All those nutrients gone back into the soil. Marvellous. That's what smothering does for you. It just leaves this amount of material. And then when that's all cleaned up, everything's ready to be planted into. The moisture levels in the soil are still good despite everything else drying out. And the amount of stalks left are gathered up, like the odd bit of plastic unfortunately, but they're nice and pliable. They will make excellent compost very fast. Covering up has the benefit of keeping these guys within the bed, and great for picking them up and removing them. Those two were removed, the slug and the snails, to somewhere where they won't cause any harm to our crops. In the shadier area I've planted spinach and sown some spinach, which is directly underneath this shading material. By shading it, you give it cooler temperatures and spinach will thank you on the germination. That's a theory, let's see if it works. Again, on the same plot, my other celery has been planted out today. It was desperate to go out. It's a little bit too yellow. I'm a little bit concerned about it, whether it actually will survive. This bed is onions, and here in the middle distance you can see my climbing French beans that have been planted out this weekend up this very rustic beam frame. But the beam frame is hazel, locally sourced and not imported from hundreds of miles away, so better really. Now then, using the trick that I used on the other celery, I'll use the rest of the shower cubicle which is minus the door parts. And I had the idea that if I put on a bit of fleece over the top of it, it just might keep those winds at bay a little bit. Let's see if it works. There's not much to compare it with because nothing's outside of the glass, unfortunately. But you know, let's see if it works rather well. We're not trying to keep it warm. We're just trying to keep the wind off it. Unfortunately, the nighttime temperatures have been a little bit cold. Not too cold. Right, now this is not my plot. This is on neighbouring plots, and this is trying to show you the garlic rust that is really set in on everybody else's crops. The leaf that is now in the centre top, that's brown, is garlic rust. Awful stuff. You can see that my garlic, my type of garlic, has got some spots, so it's less affected. This variety is Messidron, but it's got a month to go. There's no clove being felt down below this, so it's immature, it's not good enough yet. The stalks indicate that it was going to be a good crop as well, so I'm not sure how that's going to go. Now then, I know it's weed on this bed, but this is my spring planted garlic on the borrowed plot. I have to give it a good weed, I know that, but what I'm trying to show you is there's very little garlic rust on this lot yet. There is a small amount of yellow in that I believe is the start of it. This is elephant garlic. Now elephant garlic is impervious to rust, so it's a really good reason to grow it. So yeah, elephant garlic will not be affected by garlic rust, so it's a real worthwhile crop. There's one more bit of garlic I grew. This is in the polytunnel, not to give it heat, but to see if it would keep off the rust. So far it's okay. You never know, this might work. It's out of infection range, and that's just my polytunnel. On a lovely spring day, that's the end of this video. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope your gardening week is a good one. Mr. Rook's just come to say hello.